Okay, so you just paid $1.50 for a hot dog and a soda. You're standing at the counter at the front of a Costco, holding a quarter-pound of beef in a bun and a paper cup you're allowed to refill. It's 2026. $1.50 doesn't buy a coffee. It doesn't buy the candy bar at the register of the gas station you passed on the way here. It barely buys a bottle of water. And you know this deal. Everybody knows this deal. It's the one price in America that never moves. Your parents paid $1.50. You pay $1.50. The sign has looked the same since 1985, and in the 12 months, ending in August 2025, members bought 245 million of those combos. That isn't a snack. That's roughly one for every adult in the country. And 2025 was the 40th year of the price. So you assume the obvious thing. You assume Costco eats a small loss on the hot dog because it's good advertising. A cheap lunch, a friendly gesture, a rounding error at a company that moves $270 billion of goods a year. The hot dog is the gift, the pallet of paper towels is the business. That's the story everybody tells. It's backwards. The hot dog isn't a gift. It isn't a rounding error. And it isn't really a loss. It's the most honest piece of pricing in the entire building, because it's the only item in the warehouse that tells you what Costco is actually selling you. And it isn't food. Here's the turn. Costco doesn't make its money selling you things. It makes its money charging you for permission to buy them. By the end of this, you'll know what that quarter-pound of beef really costs, why the number on the sign hasn't moved in 40 years while everything around it doubled, what the company did in 2008 rather than raise it by a quarter, and where the profit in a $275 billion business actually sits. It isn't in the hot dog. It isn't in the paper towels either. And once you see it, you'll understand why the same combo costs less in Tokyo than it does in London. Start with the object. The Costco hot dog is a quarter pound, all beef, in a bun, with a 20-ounce soda and free refills. In 1985, when the combo launched, $1.50 was a normal price for that. It wasn't generous. It was the going rate. Then, 40 years of inflation happened. If that $1.50 had simply tracked the cost of living, the combo would sell today for somewhere around $4.50. That's the gap. $3 a combo, on 245 million combos, is a whole with more than $700 million in it. Which raises the obvious question, why not just raise it? Nobody riots over $2. Costco raises other prices. It raised its own membership fee in 2024. The answer is that the hot dog isn't priced like food, it's priced like a promise. To keep that promise, Costco had to become a hot dog manufacturer. When the combo launched in 1985, the beef dogs came from Hebrew National, a real brand with real prices. For 2 decades that worked. Then, in the late 2000s, the suppliers' prices kept climbing, and Costco was staring at the choice every restaurant faces: raise the price, shrink the product, or eat the difference. It picked a fourth option. Around 2008 and 2009, Costco stopped buying hot dogs and started making them. It built a plant outside Los Angeles to produce its own Kirkland signature dogs, and later added a second one in the Chicago area. The dogs aren't kosher anymore, they're Costco's. Same quarter pound, same bun, same price, made in a building the company owns. Sit with what that means. A retailer looked at a single item on a food court menu, an item worth a fraction of 1% of its revenue, and decided that the correct response to rising input costs was to go buy the factory. That isn't what a company does to protect a snack, it's what a company does to protect a number. Owning the plant does 2 things. It strips out the supplier's margin, which is the only lever you have left when you've refused to touch the price, and it removes the excuse. Nobody at Costco can walk into a meeting and say the vendor forced our hand, because there is no vendor. The cost of the hot dog became an internal problem, and internal problems get solved. Analysts who've looked at it think Costco now sits somewhere near break-even on the combo, maybe a little under. Not a catastrophe. Not a profit either. So where is the profit? To answer that, you have to understand the strangest rule in American retail. Costco caps its own markup. By policy, no branded item in the warehouse is marked up more than 14% over what Costco paid for it. Kirkland Signature, the house brand, is capped at 15%. Those are ceilings, not targets, and the buyers don't get to go over them. Hold that against the rest of the landscape. A supermarket typically runs a gross margin in the mid-20s. A department store can double the price of the thing it's selling. Costco has written itself a rule that forbids it. And the accounts show the rule is real. In its 2025 fiscal year, ending in August, Costco's gross margin was 11.12%, 11 cents on the dollar. Out of every $100 of merchandise that crossed the register, about 89 went straight back out the door to whoever made the thing. Then, running the company takes its cut. Selling and administrative costs, which is the buildings and the wages and the trucks and the lights, came to $24.97 billion. Call it 9% of sales. 89 plus 9 is 98. Run that across a full year. Costco sold $269.9 billion of goods and cleared roughly 2% on them. 2%. That's the entire margin on every television, every rotisserie chicken, every pallet of water, every tire, every ream of paper in 914 warehouses. Add the fees back in, and the whole company cleared $10.38 billion of operating income on $275 billion in revenue, under 4 cents on the dollar. No company lives on 2%. Costco doesn't. Here's the line item that changes the picture. In that same fiscal year, Costco collected $5.32 billion in membership fees, not from selling anything, from letting people in. Now put two numbers side by side. Total net income for the year was $8.099 billion. Membership fees were $5.323 billion of it. That's about 66%. 2/3 of the profit of one of the largest retailers on earth came from an annual charge that has nothing to do with merchandise at all. And look at the scale of it against everything else. Costco took in about $275 billion in total. The fees were under 2% of that. Under 2% of the money and 2/3 of the profit. That's the whole company in one sentence. The goods move at close to cost. The card is the business, which reframes the hot dog completely. If your profit is a renewal, then your most important number isn't a margin. It's the share of members who come back next year. And you don't protect that number with advertising. You protect it with proof. With one item priced so obviously, absurdly low, that a member standing in the parking lot holding a receipt cannot talk themselves out of the fee. Jim Sinegal, who co-founded the company, always rejected the phrase loss leader. He told the Seattle Times in 2009 that Costco doesn't engage in them and that the only time it sells below cost is when it's made a mistake. He was right, technically. This isn't a loss leader. It's a receipt for the membership. Now watch how carefully the company guards that receipt. Start with renewals. At the end of fiscal 2025, 92.3% of members in the United States and Canada renewed. Worldwide, 89.8%. In a business where the profit is the fee, that percentage is the profit. Then the fee itself. In September 2024, Costco raised it for the first time in 7 years. The previous increase had been in 2017. $60 became $65 for a standard membership. $120 became $130 for the executive tier. 7 years without an increase, on the single line that produces 2/3 of the profit, through a stretch when everything else in the country repriced every few months. The executive tier is worth a pause. It costs double, and it pays back 2% of what you spend, up to a cap that was lifted to $1,250 a year. Executive members accounted for about 73.6% of worldwide sales in 2025. The expensive card isn't a luxury add-on, it's where the volume lives. And then, in April 2024, Costco did something that tells you exactly how it thinks about the food court. It began requiring an active membership card to buy anything there. The outdoor food courts, the ones you could walk up to from the parking lot, were closed to non-members. The hot dog had technically been members only since 2020. Now it was enforced. Think about that decision. The cheapest, most photographed, most beloved item the company sells, and Costco deliberately made it harder to buy. Because the hot dog was never bait for strangers. It's a thank you note to the people who already paid. The clearest evidence of how seriously they take it is a story a chief executive tells about himself. Craig Jelinek ran Costco from 2012 to 2024. Before that, he went to Jim Sinegal with a problem. The combo, he said, was losing money. He suggested raising the price. Jelinek has told the answer in public more than once, including at a business lunch in 2018. Sinegal said that if Jelinek raised the price of the hot dog, he would kill him. Then he told him to figure it out. It's a funny story. It's also a complete statement of corporate strategy, delivered in one sentence. Figure it out is what produced the 2 hot dog plants. Figure it out is why the cup refills, but the dog is a quarter pound and not a third. Figure it out is why the combo has been quietly re-engineered around its edges for 4 decades, while the number on the sign stayed frozen. The most recent example landed in 2026, when Costco added a bottled water option to the combo. You can now take water instead of the 20-ounce soda. The price didn't move. Fountain soda is one of the cheapest things a food service operation pours, so handing out a sealed bottle instead isn't a cost cut. It's a menu that keeps evolving around a fixed number, and a reminder that in a food court, the drink is where the give is, not the meat. And in March 2026, the current chief executive, Ron Vakras, said publicly that the price will not change as long as he's around. Executives don't usually make promises about single menu items. They make promises about the things the business runs on. There was one moment when the number came under real attack. In November 2022, Sam's Club, which is owned by Walmart and is Costco's closest competitor, cut its own hot dog combo to $1.38, 12 cents under Costco. And Sam's Club let anybody buy it, member or not. That's a direct shot at the exact thing Costco uses to prove its value. If the rival's version is cheaper and doesn't need a card, the receipt stops working. Sam's Club was selling the same lunch to people who had paid nothing at all. Costco didn't respond. The price stayed at $1.50. Then it went the other way entirely, and 16 months later, locked its own food court behind the membership card. That looks like a mistake, until you remember what the 2 companies are actually selling. Sam's Club was using the hot dog to pull traffic in off the street. Costco uses it to keep the people who've already paid. Those are different products, and they justify different prices. Meanwhile, demand for the frozen number kept climbing. The food court sold more than 150 million combos in 2022. Almost 200 million in 2023. 245.1 million in fiscal 2025, the 40th year of the price. Multiply that out. 245 million combos at $1.50 is roughly $368 million of hot dogs sold at or near cost, deliberately, by a company that could raise the price tomorrow and lose almost nobody. That isn't charity. It's the cheapest customer retention program in American retail, and it's measured in beef. Now take the same combo overseas, because that's where the American version of the story becomes visible. Costco runs food courts around the world, and the hot dog is on nearly every menu. But it isn't one price. In Japan, the combo runs about 180 yen, roughly $1.20 at recent exchange rates. In Australia, $1.99 Australian, about $1.30 in American money. In South Korea, around 2001, call it $1.55. In the United Kingdom, £1.50, which converts to nearly $1.90. In Mexico, 35 pesos, about $2. Notice the shape of that list. The United States is not the expensive one. Converted into a single currency, it runs one of the cheapest food courts. Costco operates anywhere, and Japan and Australia sit under it, partly because those dogs are pork rather than all beef. But the real reason the American price is what it is has nothing to do with the meat. It's scale, and its ownership. The United States is where Costco has the most warehouses, the deepest membership base, and its own hot dog factories. Every one of those pushes the cost of a single combo down and spreads it across more paying members. A country with a few dozen warehouses and no plant of its own can't manufacture its margin, so the price there has to behave like an actual price, set by what a supplier charges rather than by what a promise requires. Which is the whole point. $1.50 isn't what a hot dog costs. It's what 81 million paid memberships and 2 factories allow a hot dog to cost. So here's the receipt, itemized. The quarter pound of beef costs Costco close to what it charges you because Costco went and bought the plants that make it. The soda is the cheapest thing in the building. The refill is free because the refill was always free. Nothing in the combo is where the money is. The money is a card. $65 or $130 paid once a year by about 81 million households, producing $5.32 billion that lands almost untouched on the bottom line. 2/3 of the profit of a $275 billion company collected at the door before you pick up a single thing. Everything else in the building is engineered to make that renewal feel automatic. The 14% markup cap, the 11% gross margin, the 2 cents left on every dollar of goods. The pallets on the floor, the bare concrete ceiling, the missing shopping bags, the few thousand items on the shelves where a supermarket carries 10 times as many. And at the front, placed exactly where you'll walk past it on the way out, a hot dog and a soda for $1.50. 40 years running. So that when the renewal notice arrives, you don't think about it for very long. You didn't buy lunch. You collected a dividend. Costco isn't a retailer that happens to sell memberships. It's a membership business that happens to run stores. 914 of them, stocked at cost, staffed at 9%, and paid for at the door. The hot dog was never the loss. The hot dog is the proof.